October 31st, 1992. I was 9 years old. It was also Halloween. The number one movie in the country that day was Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman. End of the Road by Boyz II Men was the number one song.
Hi, I'm Catherine O'Hara. Won't you join me this Halloween when I host Saturday Night Live with musical guest 10,000 Maniacs?
Kevin's mom was the host of Saturday Night Live.
We've interrupting Ohio falls for Bill Clinton.
A few days later, Bill Clinton was elected president of the United States. I would have voted for this guy. Oh, no, wait. This guy. If I'm honest, I probably wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to that kind of thing. But what I was paying attention to was my local sports teams. The Red Wings lost to the Maple Leafs that day, but there was a hockey fight, and we still had a pretty good season that year. The Lions would lose to the Packers on Sunday, which wasn't anything new. Chuck Daly officially resigned as the Detroit Pistons head coach, officially putting an end to the Bad Boys era. A week earlier, the Toronto Blue Jays became the first Canadian team to win a World Series. The Tigers didn't even make the playoffs. But granted, back then, it was a lot harder to make the playoffs. But you're not going to make the playoffs coming in second to last.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Besides it being Halloween, and as a 9-year-old kid being excited to get dressed up and go get some candy, it was also Saturday. And on Saturday, especially Saturday morning, in the 90s, we had cartoons. There was a lot to choose from on more than just 4 channels. But here are what the major networks lineups were on October 31st. Now, NBC was the bigger kids network, so we can just drop that right off the list. I most likely would have started my morning off with Bobby's World, and then I may have hopped between Tom and Jerry, Garfield. But at 10 o'clock, I was definitely watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then Super Dave at 11 o'clock. I loved Super Dave. But then, on October 31st, 1992, at 11:30, premiered this show, and it changed my whole world. No, I didn't immediately jump into collecting Marvel cards like the title suggests because I didn't know they existed. And therefore, I started out collecting the comic books. And lucky for me, a year before now, October 31st, 1992, debuted the reboot of X-Men, X-Men #1, illustrated by Jim Lee and written by Chris Claremont. And luckily for me, it happens to be still to this day the #1 highest selling single issue comic of all time. So there was plenty of copies for me to pick up. And I collected the majority of that first run, which lasted 10 years. Now, as I said before, I didn't even know Marvel cards existed. I only thought of sports cards. So now that X-Men was on my radar, and if I happened to see them while I was out and about, it would catch my eye. Around the block from where I grew up in Roseville, Michigan, sandwiched in between a small grocer. And when I say grocer, they actually had a butcher counter all the way in the back that you can buy steaks and stuff from. So sandwiched in between a small grocer and a liquor store was a card shop. And I saw this card, or this set. And from then on, I was hooked. My card collection went from this to looking like this. Now, what prompted me to make this video? Well, recently I was in my attic and I found this box, which contained a bunch of cards. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is not the place for these. So I brought them out of the attic and I started to look through them, and it ignited that desire in me to start collecting again. So the first thing I really did was take to Facebook Marketplace, saw what was out there, and then I also started buying new blaster and hobby boxes, but starting with the Marvel Annual uh, 2021 and 2022 card set, just because it was cheap and it wasn't that expensive to dip my toes back into the hobby. So anyway, I want I wanted to share that hobby with you guys. So I appreciate you sticking around. I know it's not the normal video I kind of make, um, but if you could give me a thumbs up. If you're new around here and you like this kind of content, please subscribe because there will be more. I will be making more videos about more Marvel trading cards. Anyway, I might throw in a DC or two. And I was also recently exposed to a set called the um, Creators something or other. I haven't really gone through them yet, but when I do, I will definitely make a video because it's not just one artist or writer, it is a bunch, which I thought was really cool. What follows from here is going to be images of every card in the X-Men Series 1 trading card set. So if you're not interested, go feel free to skip. Um, and if that's the reason you're here, welcome. I hope you enjoy. Hopefully I'll see you guys around.